Hey, welcome in.
Welcome to the Arrowhead Addict podcast.
We are here coming to you live. The Kansas City Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl. You only win a Super Bowl 2 times every 5 years, right?
Oh!
The warm-up act is over. Let's bring in Melissa Etheridge, massive Chiefs fan. Melissa.
Super Bowl champion, 2-time Pro Bowler, and Trent Green. Trent Green, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
He picked it up! He picked it up! He's gonna score! And we'll see you next week, but until then, as always, go Chiefs. Welcome in to the Arrowhead Addict podcast. It is the OG Hour, the Thursday show on a Tuesday. Patrick Allen, Adam Best here with you, the blog father. Sterling is on vacation. Thursday is Thanksgiving. And so we switched it up a little bit. The Intangibles is going to be tomorrow on Wednesday instead of Monday. And there's no OG Hour this week on Thursday. It's right now. So we're flexible. By the way, Adam, did you see somebody was blowing me up at the post-game show because they were mad last week because it was just me and it was just Price at halftime. He's like, "What happened to the podcast?" And he's mad that they're we need more personnel, I guess is what the people are trying to tell us.
I guess, but pregame it was me and Connor. So
yeah,
I had a co-pilot for the pregame, and heaven forbid Sterling take a well-earned vacation, right?
Yeah, one of the hardest working man in Kansas City media, Sterling Holmes. He's everywhere. So I'm glad he's getting a vacation. I'm glad
he's a newlywed. He needs a vacation, right?
Yeah, and we have to fight burnout on this podcast. We're not like the Raiders podcast that are out there, the Broncos podcast. We go all year long. We're going to the Super Bowl every year. We're covering it live, and we're working hard. So cut us some slack here at around the holidays, everybody. We got your back. We got a great show for you today. Tons to talk about. I can't keep up with all the news coming out of Kansas City right now. We're going to get to all of that. And then we're going to talk about this Raiders game, which is on a Friday. Weird. How weird is it to have a Friday game?
It's weird, but we're getting to the point with the Chiefs where they're going to stretch the law of physics to get them on TV or streaming at every possible occasion. Yeah. They're going to be on Netflix. They're on Amazon. Last playoffs, they were on Peacock, for Christ's sakes. I mean, Has any team been on Peacock since?
It's crazy, man. It's just like us, right? Like the Chiefs are playing on a Friday. The Thursday show's on Tuesday. Everything's upside down right now. But that's okay. We got another. I thought the Panthers game was going to be a get-right game. But it turned out to be a get more familiar with some of the problems that the team has. And we're going to talk about some of those problems and maybe debate some of them as well later in the show. I feel like this is that time of year where, and I'm just going to say this off the top before we get into everything. I think the stuff that's happening with the Chiefs right now, and very similar things happened mid to late season last year as well. I think what's happening with the Chiefs right now is a really good thing. I think it's a good thing because I would much rather have weaknesses and deficiencies getting exposed mid-season, giving the coaching staff time to scheme up how to deal with those issues. Whereas you're the Detroit Lions, you're just steamrolling everybody. Nobody's hit you in the mouth all season long. And then what happens? You get to the playoffs, and some teams unveil some stuff on you, and you don't have time to react. You don't have time to deal with it. All these one-score games that the Chiefs are having, everybody's acting like it's like a horrible thing because they're not blowing people out. I think it's good. I think it's character building. I think it teaches this team how to win in tight spots, win in close games, which almost always happens in the playoffs for everybody. And it keeps them on their toes. What good is blowing everybody out every week? It does not make you better. You don't get bigger muscles by going to the gym every day and lifted 10-pound weights. You lift heavy, you struggle, and then you grow.
the Lions are an ascending team. So absolutely drubbing somebody, it helps establish them, their aura. It helps their psyche and all these things. The Chiefs don't need any help with their confidence or their standing around the league. It is kind of funny. I joked on Twitter that if they played a Division II team, the score would be 24-23. And I think part of that is they're tired. I think part of that is everyone throws their best shot at the Chiefs. So everyone is this motivated against the Chiefs, and the Chiefs have trouble matching that sometimes. And so they just do what they have to do and ultimately eke out victories. And it's not pretty. But I still think they have that switch that they're going to flip come the postseason. I still think they have the killer instinct. We're seeing it almost every week. They got burned a little bit, keeping it too close with Buffalo. But also think about the Carolina Panthers. This is not a talent-rich roster. They have a lot of guys fighting for their professional careers this time of year. They have a new coaching staff that really wants to stick around. So they have a lot to play for and a lot to fight for on that side of the ball. And if you think back, speaking of the Lions, you think back several years ago when the Lions really turned it around. It wasn't just magically they started winning one year. They started building that culture and being frisky the previous season. So I think you have teams like Carolina trying to like build some momentum, build a culture. And any given Sunday, right? You saw the Tennessee Titans beat the Houston Texans.
Yep.
That was crazy.
The Lions were, I think, 1-6. They were 1-6, and people were asking Dan Campbell, what are you going to do? Like, this is bad. And Dan Campbell was like, you keep going back to work. You keep going. And since that moment, they're 30-8. The only other team that has been that good is the Kansas City Chiefs. They're 30-8 in that same span. So I'm not saying that the Panthers are going to rattle off a 30-8 stretch here, but I think you're right. That just because the Panthers stunk in September doesn't mean they're going to stink all year long. They're going to figure things out. Bryce Young, benched, inconsistency. He's getting more comfortable. Like the Chiefs, we're going to talk about it. The Chiefs had issues on defense in that game, but Bryce Young balled out. Like you go back and look at some of those, one of the touchdown passes that he got, I think it was over, I don't know if it was over McDuffie, maybe Najee Johnson. Like the coverage was really good. He just put the ball right where his guy needed it. The blitz on the big bomb that he got, like they were all over him. His guy wasn't even out of his break yet, and he just put the ball on the money right where he needed to be. Like sometimes these guys, they belong in the NFL, like, and they're gonna beat you sometimes.
They rebuilt their offensive line too. They brought in two high price guards, and that's probably gelling. It looked pretty good against the Chiefs. New coaching staff. It's not a shocker that it's taken this long for them to be competitive and start to figure things out a little bit.
Yeah. All right, we're going to get into all of that. We got a lot of business to get to first. Look, you guys know we are on a quest to get to 400 Apple Podcast reviews before the end of the season. We're at 375, so we're up 5 reviews from last week. So you guys did us solid, and you backed our play. As you know, if you go over to Apple Podcasts, you can leave us a 5-star review, help us to get to 400. If you want to leave a written review, you can ask us a question in that, and we'll answer it right here on the show. And we're going to do that right now. From the 10th, Hootie896 says, best in class. I've listened to this podcast since 2019, and I love all the content. I miss me some Verderam on a regular basis, though. Question. Actually, we answered this one. My bad. We answered that one. I forgot to mark it. We have no new ones, but we got 5 more reviews from last week. So we did these 2. We don't have any to read. That's on you guys. Leave us a written review, ask us some questions, but head on over to Apple Podcasts and help us out there. I'm like halfway through the review. I needed to look 2 more seconds at that in my pre-show prep, and I would have caught it. But here we are. All right. Well, then I'll just get this out of the way and let you know that Underdog is the place to play if you're a sports fan looking to win money while watching sports. With over 5 million happy players and over 2 billion won, Underdog makes it fun and easy to cash in on all your favorite athletes' performances. Compete against other players just by selecting higher or lower on 2 or more player stats, and you could win up to 1,000 times your money. So turn every touchdown into a win with Underdog. It's the best place to cash in on all your football takes all season long. Who's going to go off? Who's going to be ice cold? Just make your entries in just a few taps and turn your sports opinions into real money. You guys heard me talk about Underdog. It's a lot of fun. So just download the app today and use our code Arrowhead Addict. That's all one word. You're going to get up to $1,000 in bonus bets instantly. It's a great way to support the show. Again, that's code Arrowhead Addict, all one word. Get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. So just select higher or lower on your favorite player and cash in with Underdog. You have 18 or older and 19 or older in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 or older in Colorado for some games, and 21 and older in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. If you're concerned about your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. That's 1-800-639-8783, or text NEXT STEP to 53342. In New York, call the 24/7 HOPE line at 1-877-8-HOPE New York, or text HOPE New York to 467-369. I think I could beat Sterling now. I think I'm getting pretty close. Richard,
that was fast. He's got some auctioneer in his blood. You know, he was built for this, right? I got one thing to mention on Underdog before we move on. They've got something going on called the Turkey right now, and that is for the entire Thanksgiving slate. $5 to enter, $200K in prizes, $20K to first place. You know what I like about that? For only $5, you get a little action in every game on Thanksgiving. So if you don't have anybody playing in fantasy, you don't care about these teams, it gives you a reason to watch.
That's a great one. I'm heavily invested in the Lions in one of our fantasy leagues, so I will certainly be watching. But who doesn't love a little turkey? A little turkey on the table, a little turkey on the side with Underdog. Great way to support the show, everybody. So check it out. All right, so we got some news to get to, Adam. Obviously, DJ Humphries. I mentioned this on the postgame show. I haven't had a chance to talk too much in depth about that signing. He's coming. He's at practice today, right now. He's on the field. What's your take on this? You and I, we're in a fantasy football league together. We got a group chat going, and I said the other day, I think he just needs to be league average to really help the Chiefs, because they just have been so bad at the tackle position, particularly on the left side with Wanya Morris. If he can come in and be average, do you think it makes a massive difference for this offense? And when do you think he can actually come in and be the every down starter?
As soon as he's healthy. So I think he is a prototypical Chiefs tackle. And what I mean by that is they like their interior guys to be not only good pass blockers, but good run blockers. I think when it comes to the tackles, they just want those guys to be excellent pass blockers. They just want those guys to protect their billion-dollar quarterback. And DJ Humphries has been that. Last year, he got hurt, a little bit of a down year, but he is a good pass protector. He is, I would say, when healthy, even an upgrade over Donovan Smith, over Andrew Wiley, those kind of serviceable vets. So it really just depends on how he's feeling and if he's got his full athleticism back. But I'm guessing the Chiefs had options, right? They could have gone back to Donovan Smith. They could have gone to David Bakhtiari, maybe Charles Leno. There were multiple players that probably wanted to come into Kansas City, play left tackle, and get themselves a ring. So them deciding to go to Humphries, I think, tells you a little bit about his health. And I was looking at this, I think I tweeted about it in March, just because he's a good pass protector. And if they weren't going to bring Donovan Smith back, I didn't think Wanya Morris was ready. Kingsley Suamataia is definitely not ready. And I know we all have a lot of faith in Andy Reid and Andy Heck to coach up the offensive line. They've done it in despite what's happened in the regular season the last 3 years with all the pressures and sacks and whatnot, they have coached the offensive line up in the playoffs. But this year, Mahomes has taken more sacks. I know to some extent sacks are a quarterback stat, but he does not trust his left tackles. And that's a problem. That is affecting, I think, everything he does. So if they can bring someone in that gives him peace of mind on that left tackle spot, they got to do it.
Yeah, and I wonder if this was in the works for a long time, because when the trade deadline came, we heard lots of noise about Chiefs are targeting receivers. Chiefs are looking at pass rushers. They're looking at cornerbacks. We didn't hear anything about tackle. And with the way things were going at tackle, I was kind of like, they're not at least like inquiring. Like we're hearing no buzz about this. This could have been on the table since September, for all we know. That they called him up and was like, "Look, when you're ready, we got a good deal for you." And they've been biding their time until that point. I think the big question for me is, like, there's no question that he's a former Pro Bowler. He can step in and, if he's right, play better than Wanya Morris, and that's all the Chiefs need right now. But when? Yes, he's at practice. But we're talking about a guy who's been on the shelf. He's not been working out, but like wasn't, doing full on training camp. He's been hurt. He just got cleared to play. How long does it take him to learn the protections? How long does it take him to learn the cadence? He needs practice time with Mahomes, all that stuff. And then when is he going to be in enough game shape to go out there and play 60 snaps, right? Because you don't want to, like, how do you do this, Adam? Like, you played football. I never played football at any level. So, with a guy like this, like, do you feel comfortable, like, bringing him in to play a handful of snaps and then going back to Wanya and, like, real game action? Or are you just like, no, we're just going to practice you for 3 weeks and then put you in and expect you to go 62 snaps?
That's the way I would do it. I wouldn't baby step him. He needs the continuity. He needs the game reps. So don't throw him in there until he's really ready. If he was 23 or 24, I'd be a little concerned about just throwing him in the deep end. He's 30 years old. He's a former Pro Bowler. And I keep seeing people bring up, if he's so good, why did the Cardinals let him go? Well, because they're a young ascending team that just drafted Paris Johnson Jr., right? Early in the first round, and they also signed Jonah Williams. So they didn't have a need at tackle, and they wanted a starting tackle for the start of the regular season. I think he's a really good player. Just most teams could not afford to wait for him this long. Obviously, the Chiefs, despite left tackle problems, they're 10-1. So they were one of the teams that could get away with this.
Yeah. Yeah. And she said a little bit of cap space to work with, and now we know why. So look, they're 10-1. So they don't have to panic. They can bring him along. You don't want to rush. Don't want to put him out there and get him hurt either, because that's not going to help you. So and they got the Raiders game coming up. So they've got a little bit of wiggle room here where they could get him in for the last few games of the season and get him right and hopefully go on a run. So we'll see. He's practicing now. That's the good news. The bad news is the injuries just continue to pile up for the Chiefs. Hendershot, who they traded for from the Cowboys, is done. I believe they placed him on IR, and he was contributing a little bit. So like the tight ends, they've lost Jody Fortson. Now they lose Hendershot. Like they're just completely banged up there, and they lost Harrison Butker. So then they signed Spencer Schrader. Spencer Schrader hits the game winner last week, and now he's on the shelf. And Matthew Wright is back in Kansas City. Word is it's a hamstring injury for Spencer Schrader. So you may remember Matthew Wright. He kicked for the Chiefs for 2 games back in 2022. He was 3 for 4.
When Butker hurt his ankle, right?
Right, yeah. Butker hurt his ankle at the beginning of that
in
season.
Arizona, I think.
Yeah, for opening kickoff, I believe. So he went 1 for 1 back then from 30 to 39 yards, and then he was 1 of 2 from 40 to 49 yards. He was 1 of 1 from 50, hit a 59-yarder. So he's got a little bit of leg, and he made all 8 of his extra points that he attempted. This is a guy, it's kind of funny. He's not a bad kicker. He's an 86. So he's been in the league since 2020, but he's never really caught on with the team for a long time, except for in 2021. So here's his lifetime stats. He's played in 21 games total since 2020. He's 43 of 50, so that's 86% of his kicks. He's 10 of 10 from 20 to 29 yards, 15 of 16 from 30 to 39 yards, 12 of 15 from 40 to 49, and 6 of 9 from 50 plus. His longest ever was with the Chiefs, the 59-yarder. He's 38 of 40 on his extra points. His most run that he got was he played 14 games with the Jaguars in 2021. And he was 21 of 24 in field goals, 13 of 15 in extra points. So this is a guy who, like, he's a good kicker. He's not great, but he's a good kicker. But he's every year he's only played it. He's like the guy you call, he's not good enough to be your kicker. 2 games with the Chiefs 2022, 4 games with the Steelers of 2022 as well. 2023, he kicked 1 game for the Panthers, and he played 1 game this year for the 49ers. So how do you feel about Matthew Wright? Feel reasonably good?
Yeah, it's just ridiculous that we're having this much kicker discourse, but we're so used to kicker just being an area we never worry about, because when Harrison Butker's healthy, he's pretty much automatic, especially in clutch situations. You almost, I mean, even a game-winning kick in the Super Bowl, you're like, dude's got this. I think being a journeyman NFL kicker has got to be tremendously hard, because you just feel like you're one miss away from getting the yank, from getting the pink slip. So it's not ideal, because I think one of the things working for Butker at this point is the locker room believes in him. He knows his job is stable. So that's the ideal situation, that you had the same kicker year in, year out. They're not like, an emotional basket case because they think if they shank 1 kick, they're going to be out of the league for good. So that's my concern with Matthew Wright. That being said, he's been pretty consistent. With those numbers, I don't really know why he hasn't stuck. Does he not have a cannon leg like some of these other guys? We're seeing so many guys that can kick it in practice from like 70 yards. Is that the issue?
It just might be that there's only 32 of these jobs in the NFL. Nobody's carrying backup kickers. And so, teams, they work guys out, and like you got to be real, maybe you need to be 86%, not good enough. You need to be 89%, 88, 88% to get on and stick with the team. We see this. I mean, the Chiefs had Cairo Santos, and then they cut him, and he's gone on to have a really great career. He's a very good kicker, but they made the right decision. Butker was
Suck
better.
up too. Ryan Suck up
too.
Stuck around too, right?
Yeah. So sometimes I think it's just a matter of opportunity. So maybe Matthew Wright he'll get enough run with a team where people are like, oh yeah, he's a perfectly good NFL kicker, and he sticks. He'll get his chance with Kansas City on Black Friday against the Raiders. Okay. And if he kicks for a game for them, he'll get a Super Bowl ring. So who wouldn't want that? All right. So the injury woes continue. One last piece of news here. Did you know that the Chiefs can clinch a playoff berth this weekend? That's what happens when you go 10-1.
It makes sense, especially with how many teams are really just terrible this year.
There's a lot of middlings. The middle is really, like 7-win teams, 6-win teams, 5-win teams. And then the AFC is kind of top heavy. So here's how the Chiefs can clinch. They can't clinch the AFC West yet, but they can clinch a playoff berth. Easiest one, win. Miami loses or ties. Chiefs are in the playoffs. Also, a win plus a Denver loss also gets the Chiefs in, because Miami and Denver are fighting, like Miami, Denver, Cincinnati. They're all trying to get that last playoff spot. And so one of them losing would basically mean that they'd be too far behind where the Chiefs could fall. So, and then the less likely ways for this to work: Chiefs win, the Chargers lose, and Denver ties. Or if the Chiefs win and Miami loses, or maybe it's Miami ties. At any rate,
Miami is playing at Lambeau Field on Thanksgiving. So, and there's the knock on Tua is that he can't play in the cold weather. Then you have Denver playing a pretty tough Browns team. They're not spectacular by any means, but they're a tough
beat the Steelers
on any given week. And then the Chargers are playing. They're playing at Atlanta. So another team that has quite a bit of talent that isn't an easy out. So presumably all 3 of those teams could lose.
Yeah, there's a good chance the Chiefs will be playoff bound. It's all academic at this point. So that last scenario is if the Chiefs tie and Miami loses, they get it. So God help us if we tie the Raiders. The discourse around the Chiefs is already so insane that the talk shows just will explode. It's academic at this point. The Chiefs are going to make the playoffs no matter what. Short of them losing all of the rest of their games, and they still might make it. Okay, let's get on to some of our topics of discussion. By the way, if you're watching on YouTube, do us a solid, hit that like button, and shout out to all the Arrowhead Addict members. If you're interested in becoming a member of the Arrowhead Addict podcast, check out the link in the description. And I see we've got a super chat from Raymond. Appreciate you, Raymond. We're going to get to that in just a minute when we talk about the offense, but I'm going to save it. Okay, but let's start with the defense, Adam. And my headline for this one is the defense broken. So the Chiefs defense, we knew it might take a step back this year. No L'Jarius Sneed. Chris Jones is a year older. Being a top defense, I mean, the Chiefs were so good on defense. It's unreasonable. Defense has a lot of variance in the NFL. You can be really good one year, middle of the pack the next year. It's very, very difficult to play defense in this league at all. So Chiefs defense had kind of taken a step back, but early in the season, they were still doing really well. Great timely calls by Steve Spagnuolo. We were talking about him really being in his bag. And then you have the injury to Jalen Watson. And since then, and I talked about this on the post-game show, this Chiefs defense can be had. And I think the book is out on them right now, where earlier in the season, they were stopping the run, good timely blitzes. But when they lost Watson and went to Najee Johnson, teams started challenging the secondary. And Najee Johnson's taken a lot of heat for this because he's the fill-in guy on the outside. But I think it's also put more strain on the Chiefs' safeties. Justin Reed, not good in coverage. Cook's been struggling. Jamari Connor is essentially a safety. So those guys got attacked badly in that Panthers game. We saw Josh Allen. Chiefs had Bills in a number of third and long situations in that game. Couldn't get off the field. Bo Nix lighten up this Chiefs pass defense. So is this defense broken? Can it be fixed? Because there's no help coming in the secondary.
There is help coming though. And I'm going to kind of go out of order on the show sheet here, but I'm just so excited to talk about Charles Omenihu.
Yeah.
That's been my guy. I wanted him to be in Kansas City before even free agency last year. And I thought he was very needed last year down the stretch because he gives you something entirely different than Mike Dana, than George Karlaftis. Those guys are power edges. They play the run well, and they win with motor. They win with hustle. They do not win quick and blow shit up with athleticism. Chris Jones needs another guy that can do that. He needs another disruptor on the defensive line. And let's just wish on our lucky stars that Charles Omenihu is back to full strength because they desperately need that kind of guy. And remember, Charles Omenihu is just not a guy that wins at edge, that wins at defensive end. You can kick him inside, and he's almost better because that length and that power and that, get off that he has just overwhelms most guards. So that is sort of my hope, as well as kind of coaching up Najee Johnson. The secondary, it's not just the secondary. Okay. I think the safeties have been bad. And I think Drew Tranquill, he might be underperforming worse than anybody in the defense. I mean, he got the bag and just has not looked like himself. The book on him coming into the Chiefs was this guy is one of the better coverage linebackers in the league, and he's been atrocious in coverage. And he was great last year. They were right to sign him given his age and the way he played, but nobody in the back seven really looks good. And that, to some extent, that includes McDuffie because Jalen Watson did such a tremendous job of coming in and giving you 80% of what L'Jarius Sneed was doing last year. And then he goes out, and now not only are they testing the safeties more, like you said, like you astutely pointed out, McDuffie is having to guard guys like Cortland Sutton in crunch time, and he's just too small. He is too small to those big receivers, the guys like Mike Evans and AJ Brown and DK Metcalf, he's not going to be able to stick with them every play. And so I think it's just kind of been a domino effect. And you're right. Teams have figured out what they're doing a little bit. Spags was doing some great, like, smoke and mirrors earlier in the season. And I have faith that come playoff time, Spags will have more smoke and mirrors. But there's something's just not right about this unit. And you look at our defense and you have to ask yourself, who do you really trust? And I know some people are getting on Chris Jones, and I'm like the president of the Chris Jones Fan Association. So I'm sure that's going to be an interesting discussion. But I think the last thing I'll add here, there is one other card that they've yet to play, and that's Jaden Hicks, who I thought was the defensive star of the preseason. I'm getting to the point where I was 3 years back with Dan Sorensen, and they wouldn't play Juan Thornhill and some of those more athletic guys. I just think with Spags, the veteran deference for some of these safeties goes too far. I'm not saying you have to bench Justin Reed or you have to totally bench Brian Cook, who I think has actually been worse than Reed. But Jaden Hicks can't get on the field the way the secondary is playing. It just blows my mind.
Yeah, it's tough. It's a little bit of a house of cards, I think, right? You lose Watson, it changes some of the things that you can do. You like to blitz, right? They used to like to really blitz Snead. He was an excellent tackler as well. They like to blitz McDuffie. Now you can't afford to do that with McDuffie too often because you're just too exposed. You can't look. Spags could look at this team last year and be like, all right, I'm going to blitz McDuffie. I still got Snead back there locking down the number one. We're going to be okay. Now it's a lot more risky. Teams have figured out that you can attack the safeties. They figured out that the Chiefs struggle with tight ends because a lot of the linebackers can't cover, although I believe Chanel has gotten some good pass coverage grades this year. But as you mentioned, Tranquil is struggling. And then there's the pass rush. And outside of Chris Jones, and you and I, we were talking about this on Twitter, I think both things could be true. He's been excellent this year. His Pro Football Focus grade, pass rush grade, is 91. That's tops in the league. Okay. Second is Cam Hayward at 90. The next guy is Jalen Carter at 85.7. Again, this is Pro Football Focus, so it's just one source here. He's getting pressures. He's got a 17.3% win rate, which is just a smidge behind Cam Hayward, and that's way ahead of everybody else. And he's got 38 hurries, which I think is more than anybody else in the league, according to Pro Football Focus stats. But he only has 3 sacks. And your contention is that, he's getting double teamed and nobody else is a threat. And so he's just not been getting home because of that. I would argue that at a $158 million contract, and if he's getting that many pressures, he's getting close. Maybe it's just bad luck and they'll come. And that's probably what it is. But I would argue that one of his hallmarks, it has been, maybe he's not going full throttle in the first quarter, but when it matters, that's when he shows up big. That's when he bats down the ball. He doesn't have a single pass defended this year. He only has 3 sacks. Couple crucial drives, right? Halftime of the Bills game. The Bills get the ball. They're going to be able to chance to double up. They go down there and score. Couldn't get a stop. End of the game. Couldn't get a stop. End of the game against the Broncos. Couldn't get a stop. That last drive in the Panthers game, I was like, okay, Chris Jones, we just need you to get that one play, that strip sack, that one play. It hasn't been there for him this year. And again, it's a smallish sample size. It could be bad luck. But what's your take on it? Do you think is he a little more tired in the fourth quarters because he's a year older now? Is it just the fact that there's nobody else helping him get? Is it that they're not moving him outside as much because there's nobody else interior that they could put in there? Maybe that changes when Omenihu gets back. I'm really interested to hear your thoughts on all that.
Well, I'm just looking at the stats, and I don't know why PFF and ESPN have a different pass rush win rate, but ESPN has him number 1. The only player that gets double teamed more than him, and he's usually first, is Daquan Jones. He is first in hurries among defensive tackles. He has 1 less pressure than Zach Allen, who for some reason has played a ton more snaps. Have the Broncos not have their bye yet? Maybe that's the situation.
Yeah.
Anyway, if the pressures and the hurries and the pass rush win rate, all those things were down, I would worry. But sacks can be fluky. They can come in bunches. You can go through dry stretches. I think this is particularly true for defensive tackles who just don't rack up as much sacks as edges, because guys like Micah Parsons and Myles Garrett, you think they're getting double teamed a lot, but compared to Chris Jones, he's getting double teamed 70% of the time. They're getting double teamed 30% of the time. It is apples to oranges. And Chris Jones has built a reputation as a closer, and we're going to need that. And he hasn't been as much of that lately. So I think that is a fair criticism. But early in the season, there were a couple games there. I thought Lamar Jackson would have had a touchdown to Isaiah Likely and won that game without Chris Jones. I think it was like the first couple, 2 or 3 games, Chris Jones, maybe even beyond that. I thought Chris Jones and Spags were kind of saving this team early in the season. And Chris Jones just isn't going to have a game-winning play every single week. He might do that in the playoffs because he does up his game, as does Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes. That's just kind of where they're at. They do pace themselves a little bit at their age, especially Chris Jones and Mahomes. I think he's been good against the run too. And I just, honestly, I think both Karlaftis and Mike Dana have been worse than last year. And FAU isn't giving them a whole lot. And then where is Joshua Uche, right? I joke that he's in, we need a missing persons report. Like, where is this guy? I kind of think Spags just doesn't want to play him. Maybe it's because he's a 240-pound edge and he just doesn't like that. He likes those sturdier guys that play the run and bring power. But they got to get him on the field, because he's another guy that he's not going to be great against the run, but you need someone else that can get quick hurries and win quickly. So that's where I'm at. I don't totally absolve Chris Jones when you're the second highest paid player on the team and one of the highest paid defenders in the league. Your expectations are up here. So, but also I just think we're learning that the rest of the defense they built around him just isn't as special as it seemed 6 weeks ago.
Yeah. I think you're right. Look, he could go this game against the Raiders. I think Aiden O'Connell is going to be starting. He could have 3 sacks in this game. And then all of a sudden, if you're just looking at the sack numbers, you're like, oh, yeah, okay, he's at 6 sacks, 11, 12 games into the season. Oh, he's winning in pressures, and you're feeling a lot better. I think it's been these last few weeks, the fact that the defense as a whole has been struggling has magnified the lack of sacks for Chris, the lack of batted balls, which has been a little bit of a trademark of his, and the lack of closing on some of those drives where they just, hey, man, you're playing Bryce Young. He's trying to drive down the field and tie the game. Like, just finish him, I think, the advanced stats say he's right where he should be. And it's just a matter of, as you pointed out, sacks can be fluky. I still think he needs to get a couple. He needs to get going in that department with his contract. But I think he'll be okay. And I think you're right. I think Omenihu coming back, he's still going to get double teamed, but it's going to make things. Remember, Charles Omenihu was suspended basically all of September last year. Got rolling, slow start, new team, all that stuff. He had 7 sacks at the end of the year. 5 of those came after December. So
the big strip in the AFC Conference Championship on Lamar, that was one of the game-defining plays.
Yeah. And then we lost him. And so, it might be a similar start. He come back and you could have 4 games of not very much production from him as he's getting back into game shape and all that stuff. But that's okay, because if he becomes the guy that he was for the Chiefs late last season, by the time the playoffs start, that's going to make everything in the secondary easier. They're going to be able to get pressure without blitzing as much, and some much needed reinforcement.
I want to get to a question from Raymond before we move on. He asked if these past 2 weeks Chris Jones has played worse because he doesn't have any tackles. Honestly, he's second in pass rush win rate these past 2 weeks, and he's tied for first in pressures. I think the only person that has been winning more than him is DeForest Buckner these past 2 weeks. So I know that if you keep saying this and he doesn't get sacks for a long stretch of time, it's like someone has to get home. The Chiefs have to get more sacks. So, but I think I've been watching him. He doesn't look bad. He's still getting in the backfield and creating havoc. He just has to create a little bit more magic, especially in the fourth quarter.
Let's hope he starts this Friday. Okay. Let's talk about the offense. And I want to kick us off with the super chat from Raymond. It says, offensive positives. Mahomes is getting confident in throwing the tight contested passes. Gray looks great. Worthy and Mahomes are connecting. D-Hop can catch the 100-mile-per-hour Mahomes fastballs and more. And I do think we're starting to see, maybe not all in one fell swoop, but I do think we're starting to see some things open up on the offense a little bit. But I've got questions, Adam. And the first one is, how much do you think this offense has room to grow? Do you expect us to get more out of DeAndre Hopkins than what we're getting right now? Or is this who he's going to be? A chain mover, 40 yards a game, maybe 70 on a good game?
Well, it depends, Patrick, on whether you're asking about the regular season or the playoffs, because in the regular season, this is what we're going to get. This is what we're going to get. And I don't know if it's the knee or it's his age the whole thing with the draft pick on him not playing. Okay, so here's the deal. If he plays more than 60% of snaps and they win the Super Bowl, that fifth that they traded for DeAndre Hopkins becomes a fourth. I don't think that the Chiefs, in their quest to repeat, are going to be that precious about the difference between a late fourth and a late fifth, especially when they have an extra third. I just don't think they're thinking about that. It probably has to do with the age and the knee, and also just we see this with rookies too. He didn't have an offseason. He didn't have a preseason to get acclimated to the offense. Andy Reid is stubborn about these receivers knowing the entire playbook, knowing all three positions. You can't expect DeAndre Hopkins a month in to have mastery of the Andy Reid system. So, but we got a preview in that game where he went like 10 for 86, and he and Kelsey were just vibing off one another, making beautiful music. I think that Kelsey had like 14 catches that week, so they had 24 catches between them. I also think the Chiefs saw that performance and were like, okay, we can put him on mothballs into the playoffs and just use him as a chain mover when we need him. The thing I want to ask you is, my head explodes every time I see a 3rd and long and I see DeAndre Hopkins or Travis Kelce run off the field. And I see guys like in the past, Sky Moore, McCole Hardman, and last week, Juju Smith-Schuster and Justin Watson were on the field, and DeAndre Hopkins came off on 3rd and 6. And I'm just like, why? Why is this happening?
Yeah, it's weird, man. You don't think there's not a 7-yard route DeAndre Hopkins can run where he can get open. It also seems like, and I know they're really trying to conserve his energy, but like they've been doing this for a couple of years now, and it drives me out of my mind. Like we'll be hearing nothing from Travis Kelce, and then he'll make a play, and then it's straight off the field. And I'm like, look, man, I know he's older, but like he's not so. Are you telling me he's so old that like once he gets tackled, he needs a 2-play blow? Like I know they're managing and it's packages and stuff, but like when that dude gets going, like just go back to him. Like, we need this drive. Just why are we taking him off the field? And I swear to God, every time he catches a ball, and this is just anecdotal and it may not be true at all, but like every time he catches a ball, he stands up and runs straight to the sideline. And I'm like, no, we're finally getting, what are you doing? Where are you going?
Do you think he pulls himself because he knows he has to pace himself? That's the thing with both these guys. We're not privy to the information about when they pull themselves. So that's kind of the unknown factor here.
Yeah, I mean, look, man, he's 35 years old. Even I could go out there and run 2 plays back as hard as I could. It wouldn't be pretty. It'd be slow, but I don't need to come out of the game. So I don't know, man. It's probably a package thing. He moves the change. He gets a first down, and their first down play, they're running the ball a lot, right? So they probably don't want him out there. They're bringing in the blocking guys on.
They trust
down,
Noah Gray more too.
Yeah,
you were seeing with Mahomes, Noah Gray's the third guy he looks at behind Kelsey and Hopkins. He's the guy he trusts him more than any of the other receivers. I mean, maybe even more than Juju at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we'll see what we get from D-Hop here moving forward. Hollywood Brown could be coming back sooner rather than later. That's really good news. We'll see how he fits in. What about Pacheco? So it seems like he's going to play this weekend. What are you expecting from him? Do you think he's going to be a little bit of a lesser version of himself for the rest of this year? Is he going to come back in and start just immediately resume his starting role, or is it going to be more of a platoon with Kareem Hunt?
I think it will be a platoon. You look at Isaiah Pacheco, he's been banged up almost his entire time in Kansas City, and he runs into contact. He does it well. He punishes guys and wears the defense down, but he also wears himself down. Yeah. The way I see it is they have 6 weeks, 7 weeks. I guess it depends on whether they get the 1 seed or not, which I think they will. They're still on track to do that. They do not need him to take 50% of the snaps right now. Kareem Hunt can still carry the load. Kareem Hunt has proven his durability. And I think regardless of what Pacheco comes back, and I'm hoping that come playoff time, we will have 90% Isaiah Pacheco, because we really need that 4.4 speed is the one thing that's desperately missing from this backfield with, I like Samaje Perine and Carson Steele and Kareem Hunt. They all they're tough bruisers, good hands, good vision, good patience, but he is just a different level of athlete. So I think they need him. He was so big last year in the playoffs. I think people forget there was one of those games where he had 26 carries or something. So they're not going to ask him to do that again, but I think he could retake his position as the top of the platoon, the 1A to Kareem's 1B. Maybe he gets 60% of the rushes. Kareem Hunt gets 35. Carson Steele gets 5%. They bring Samaje Perine in to catch passes, or maybe they work, Samaje Perine or Carson Steele loses their role. Because I think when you're using 4 running backs, that's one too many cooks in the kitchen. What do you think, Patrick?
Yeah, somebody's going to be inactive. It'll probably be Perine, I think.
But he's the best receiver of them, in my opinion.
Yeah, he is. But, I think Pacheco was really growing in that area, and they were using him there more this year, which is one of the reasons why they were,
What about as a protector, though?
Yeah, I think he's still got a little work to do there, but I think he's better there too, which is why they were more confident in using him. I think he comes back, and if you want to run the ball, and I think the Chiefs want to run the ball a lot, and I think they've backed off a little bit because they were like, we're going to grind Kareem Hunt into dust. If they want to run the ball 30 times, you could be sitting there going into the fourth quarter, late into the fourth quarter, and have Pacheco at 10 carries and Kareem Hunt at 16 or at 6 carries. And you're like, okay, we've got 16 carries for these guys. Maybe each of them have a target or two. And it's late in the game and you just want to pound. You've worn these defenses down. It's the fourth quarter and they're tired. And what they want to do is pin their ears back and get after the bad left tackle. And instead you're just like, oh yeah, we're just going to hit you with Isaiah Pacheco, who runs like a maniac. You got to tackle this guy. And then when we take him out, you got Kareem Hunt coming in. So I think they're going to be in really good shape. And I think you'll see Andy start running the ball more like he was when Kareem Hunt first joined the team. It was sort of like survival mode. Everybody was hurt. How can we win games? We're going to give Kareem 30 carries. And they know that that's not sustainable. And Pacheco's not back. But now giving him each 10 to 12 carries, if you want to, you can do that. And you could really wear some defenses down and help your defense as well.
What I like about Pacheco and Kareem Hunt, and maybe Carson Steele a little bit, I think Samaje Perine and Jerick McKinnon last year, they're kind of tells. the Chiefs in poker terms, right? The Chiefs are kind of telling the other team that they're probably going to pass. When you have Isaiah Pacheco now turning into more of a route runner and a capable receiver and pass protector, and Kareem Hunt is not explosive there, but he's very capable of catching the ball and pass protecting. They don't really know what's coming as much. So I do like that.
Yeah, and put them both back there. Run a little pro set and, fake a handoff to one of them and send one of them out on a route.
What about that diamond look last week? That was kind of sexy, right?
You always count on Andy to dig up some fun plays. All right, let's get to this Raiders game. Not a ton to talk about here, guys. Look, Chiefs are 10-1. Raiders are 2-9. This game's at Arrowhead. The Chiefs are 12.5-point favorites in this one. I think they opened up at like 13. It's come down a little bit. 42.5 over/under. Aiden O'Connell is going to be starting in this game. The Raiders have the worst rushing attack in the NFL. And I don't know who's practicing this week, but last week they didn't have Zamir White or Alexander Madison, and neither of those guys have been productive. They were running out Amir Abdullah. This team's a mess. They lost Gardner Minshew. He was one bright spot for them. He's a competent quarterback. He's done for the year. O'Connell, he went 5-5 as a starter for them last year. He was starting the game on Christmas, the Raiders didn't win that game because of Aiden O'Connell. Are you worried about the Raiders at all in this game other than some sort of weird repeat of Christmas Day of last year?
You always have to worry about these divisional games. You just always do. These teams know each other so well. There's no love lost. So the familiarity, the rivalry. Also, the Chiefs absolutely laid an egg on a holiday last year. So I don't think they're above coming out basically on the day after Thanksgiving and doing that again. So, and last week I thought we didn't have to worry about the Panthers. So I'm done with not worrying about interior competition. The Chiefs play to the level of their competition. Sometimes with bad teams, they play with their food a little bit. It's frustrating. I kind of like Amir Abdullah, though. I think Amir Abdullah has always been underrated. He's a hell of a pass-catching back. He's a little bit like a poor man's Jerick McKinnon or James White or something. And their other running backs were just not good. So now they're giving some guy, I shit you not, named Sincere McCormick carries, and we might even see the rookie Dylan Lobby. This is just not a very talented roster, but there are some scary guys on this team. Jacoby Myers, I think, is one of the most underrated players in the league. Very good receiver. I think that was a good signing for them. Brock Bowers, if he's not there yet, he is on his way to becoming the next great tight end in the National Football League, like the top tight end in the league. And then Max Crosby is he's an absolute animal. But I will say, and I want to hear what you think about Max Crosby and these tackles, but Juwan Taylor actually did an excellent job against Max Crosby the last time these two teams faced off.
Yeah, the Chiefs done a pretty good job. Crosby can wreck a game for you, but the Chiefs know him well. And I think one thing that Steve Spagnuolo is really good at with guys like Crosby that are really, really aggressive is taking advantage of their aggression. And so they're going to have plays. They're going to have screens. They're going to let him in and then rope-a-dope him. That's how they deal with Max Crosby. Look, he's going to get a couple sacks in this game. He's going to have his moments. The Chiefs just need to make sure they don't have a strip sack, something catastrophic from him, where you help out a really bad offense. Because as you pointed out, there's not really anybody that you're scared of on this offense. I mean, these guys average 3.6 yards a carry. Their best receiver is Brock Bowers.
I'm scared of Brock Bowers. He has one less reception on the year, I think, than or one less target this year than Jamar Chase. I mean, he's been an animal. But hey, McDuffie was on him in the first game and did a great job.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is that I'd be more scared of Bowers if there was somebody else to worry about on the offensive side of the ball. But like Devontae Adams is gone. man. So Spagnuolo, Brock Bowers is their leading receiver. Then it's Jacoby Myers, who you mentioned. He's got 579 yards. And then it's Trey Tucker with 367. I mean, this is a worse receiving situation than the Chiefs. After those three, it's Alexander Madison with 245. They've got nobody. The quarterbacks aren't any good. They're bad on third down. They're just bad. They're a bad football team. They're basically, like the Panthers, scoring around 17 points a game, giving up, close to 30. They're just not a good football team. This is at Arrowhead. It's not on the road. Aiden O'Connell does not have the talent that Bryce Young has, where like he can all of a sudden flip a switch and play well like Bryce Young did. Chiefs have their issues. This game should not be close. It will be, because it's the Chiefs, and they'll all get drunk and eat way too much turkey on Thursday, and then they'll go out there and drive us all insane. But let's get to our final score predictions on this one. How do you see this one playing out?
Chiefs 24, Raiders 23. I'm just going to pick that every week, no matter who they play in perpetuity or whatever. I just can't, in good faith, pick them to blow anybody out. I don't care who they're playing. If it's an SEC team or whatever, it's just where we're at with this Chiefs team, the way they're constructed, the way they want to wear teams down. Andy also just isn't, maybe it's a little different in the playoffs. He's just, I don't know, maybe too nice of a guy to be a foot on the gas, like let's bury these cockroaches kind of guy.
Yeah.
But am I sweating the Raiders? No, but last Christmas, I thought it was going to be a laugher, and they were the ones laughing at us. So I don't know. What's your prediction, Patrick?
I have a tendency to want to go the same route you are going, but I know they already played each other once this year, but I think this is so spookily similar to the Christmas Day situation. It's at Arrowhead. The Chiefs are 10-1. It's the day after a holiday. It's just hard for me to believe, as good as this coaching staff is and with Mahomes and Kelsey, that those guys are going to come out and play like they played last Christmas. So I think they're going to remember that. They're going to talk about that this week. And they should have been frustrated after that Panthers game. The defense is probably mad. Steve Spagnuolo's mad. The offense was moving the football pretty well, so they're probably feeling okay. I think Spagnuolo is going to try to get some swagger back from his defense, because they have some tough games coming up, right? Like, it's not just about this game against the Raiders, which the Chiefs should win with no problem. They have some tough games coming up that they need this defense to perform if they want to get this number one seed. Remember, after Vegas, they're playing a Chargers team that's playing good football, and their offense is really coming along on Sunday Night Football. Then they have to go to Cleveland and deal with Jameis, who will, Jameis is not afraid. He's going to sling the ball against this Chiefs secondary. They got Houston, Pittsburgh, Denver. Those are all going to be tough games. They need to get some swagger back on defense. I think Steve Spagnuolo dials it up, and I think the Chiefs win in a blowout. I'm going to say it. Chiefs 31, Raiders 20. It shouldn't be that close, but it will be. All right. We get a couple in the chat here. Javi says 27-20 Chiefs. Sean says 35-16 Chiefs. Slothy says this game is either going to be 50-13 or 63-3. Hopefully this is the Chiefs' annual blowout of the Raiders. They usually have at least one. All right, everybody, before we get out of here, because I gotta get Rory's at daycare. And if I'm not there by 6, they'll call the cops and turn him over. So before we go, though, let's do Patty's Power Rankings. If you're here for football and you don't like hearing guys talk about movies on a football podcast, you can depart. But I encourage you to stay. Last couple of weeks, we've done our birthday years, our favorite 3 movies from our birthday years. This year, we're going to do our favorite 3 movies from the year that one of our favorite people in the world was born. And that, of course, is Patrick Mahomes, who was born in 1995, which is depressing if you were born in the early 80s like me. So let's do it, man. 95, really interesting year. When I looked at the movies from 95, this was so I was, about 12 years old in 1995. And so really starting to get into film, and I could see more stuff now because I'm a little bit older. I'm almost a teenager. And I was looking back at the movies, and I remembered a lot of these very well, I think because of that formative time in my life, but also like there was quite an array of film in 1995. I mean, stuff all over the board, animated films and thrillers and stuff. Why don't you kick us off with your third movie from 95?
Yeah, we weren't really in franchise mania yet either. So there's a lot of original titles. Quickly, I left a couple off my list because we had already talked about them. Crimson Tide, Heat. I like to talk about new movies. So the first one here, my third pick is 12 Monkeys. This is Brad Pitt giving one of his zaniest, best character performances. Bruce Willis, kind of on a heater post Pulp Fiction. Madeline Stowe looking great. Christopher Plummer. And then Terry Gilliam, who's had a really weird film career, but the guy who made Brazil, it was just a perfect match for the subject material. This was based on, God, I forget the name. It was based on a famous French short film, a classic French short film, and they turned it into a feature. I love it. It's very rewatchable. It might hit a little harder post-COVID, because we're talking about that kind of stuff here. But I loved it as a teenager. It stayed with me. What do you have at 3?
So number 3 for me is when I think of, if you said, what if an alien showed up tomorrow, although apparently they're already here. If they showed up tomorrow and they said, Patrick, we want to know about your culture. Tell us about the 1990s. I would say you need to watch Empire Records. It's just the most, there's a lot of good like movies from the 90s that much in the way that some of the John Hughes movies really kind of define when you think of 80s movies, you're like, oh yeah, The Breakfast Club. And some of these movies in the 90s were so 90s. They were so into themselves. And there's a lot of them, High Fidelity but like Empire Records, man, that's the one. Liv Tyler, it's an incredible cast. Rex Manning Day is like still a thing, right? And it's a movie that wouldn't get made today, right? Like it would not exist because there are no record stores. People don't understand what it was like, younger kids.
Records are coming back though a little bit. So
they are, but like it's a niche thing, man. Like they don't know what it was like to go into these record and CD stores, in the mall, Virgin, and like movies.
They sold singles. That's how popular buying CDs and tapes was. You would go and buy a single.
It was so fun to go into these stores and hear they're playing the latest music. It's much like video stores. I'm sure you loved going to video stores. I did. I'm very nostalgic for them. So Empire Records, if you've never seen it, if you're a little bit younger, it's a snapshot of a moment in time. It's a great film. A lot of fun.
Time capsule. Yeah, man. I used to go to Blockbuster and spend half an hour just looking at the boxes. And picking like I've never seen this before. Ever. And so and I miss that dearly. Number 2 for me is a little bit of a dark horse here. It is Devil in a Blue Dress. It is a Denzel Washington movie that's kind of a noir, sort of like LA Confidential or Chinatown, or even a less funny version of The Big Lebowski. He's just so excellent. This time, Denzel, like Crimson Tide, this period, he's just the ultimate movie star. I recently watched Training Day and just love Denzel. But the other thing about this movie that it really had going for it was the emergence of Don Cheadle. And Don Cheadle comes in this movie, I don't know if it's halfway or a little bit earlier, but he just lights this movie on fire. And you'd never seen Don Cheadle before. So you're like, who the hell is this guy? Just going toe to toe acting wise with Denzel. Really cool movie, a bit of a sleeper, but I really dig it.
You want to talk about somebody who was on a heater in the 90s, Malcolm X, Pelican Brief, Philadelphia. one of both he and Tom Hanks in Philadelphia, some of my favorite performances as an actor. Just Courage Under Fire. Like he had done Glory. Like this guy, unbelievable talent.
He got game, you know?
Yeah. Oh God. It was just one after another. So watchable. All right. Number 2 for me, I got to go Braveheart, man. Just another totally 90s movie, an epic. Look, Mel Gibson turned out to be a little bit of a lunatic, but he's an unbelievable actor. He's so expressive. He's, I remember that clip of him like berating his girlfriend and like just saying insane stuff. I don't know if you remember. There's actually, it's sort of like, it's funny but not funny. Like there's some comedians that listen to it and he's just like yelling at her and he's saying like unhinged things like, you need to blow me, like just crazy stuff. But he's totally in a rage. Like he can't control his emotions. Like it's very clear from that audio. And I've worked with actors like that. And when I call them as like, I say that they're a raw nerve. And sometimes when you act with actors like that, it can be a little scary because they are able to, especially when they're channeling rage. It can be a little bit frightening because you're like, are you serious, bro? Like this seems a little too real. And I've seen guys like punch walls and stuff when they get going like that. And he is that kind of actor, and it makes him, and it's not just with rage though. Like he just has that personality where he can bring up feelings, and he's unbelievable in a lot of different movies, but Braveheart's just tremendous, gut-wrenching film, fun, it's the perfect Hollywood movie, and it's a standout for me in 95.
He's also a great director. He just is.
Oh yeah. He's talented.
I don't really like the guy, but that doesn't stop you from enjoying his movies.
Yeah,
so
he's incredibly talented.
Extremely talented. I mean, all the way back to Lethal Weapon. I don't know how much he was acting. He might be a little bit of a nut. Yeah. Let's get to my number one of my favorite movies ever. Get Shorty. Huge Get Shorty fan. Elmer Leonard is my favorite author of all time. When I was in high school, I was just devouring his books. And this is an adaptation. I mean, the cast is just stacked. You got Travolta, DeVito, Hackman, Rene Russo, James Gandolfini, Dennis Farina, Delroy Lindo. I could keep going. I won't. But it's just one of these movies that you just remember. You just remember so many things about it. And it's just got a special tone. It's just a lot of fun. It's one of the most rewatchable movies to me that I've ever found. And I really value that trait in movies. As I get older, things that you can go back to and they're still breezy and you're still discovering new things about them. Just a cool movie. The sequel, Be Cool, is not cool, but the original is wonderful.
Yeah, another great 90s movie too when you think of 90s film. I see Conway in the chat says Friday. Bro, I almost put Friday on a list. Friday's unbelievable. Absolutely hilarious movie. Tremendous. Tons of stars in that one too. Anytime Friday's on.
Debo, right?
Yeah, Debo's coming. Chris Tucker. I mean, it's incredible. How are you going to get fired on your day off? Don't nobody go in the bathroom for 15, 20 minutes. I mean, just iconic, like hilarious lines. Yeah. Memes, everything. Number 1 for me though, you guys know me. I'm a horror fan. Got to go 7. And you want to talk about, it's just a masterpiece. It's everything. It's the acting. It's you talk about incredible cast. Brad Pitt, Morgan Freeman, Kevin Spacey, Gwyneth Paltrow, just a phenomenal cast, a really tight script. It was like, it's so funny, because we hit this period years later of like, you get like True Detective and all of these kind of like noir cop procedural dramas that are like, have a really dark, nasty edge and underbelly to them. It started with 7. And look, there's going to be people out there who have never seen 7, who maybe are a little bit younger. So I'm not going to talk about like the ending or anything, because I know it's been out forever and we would be in safe territory to talk about it. I don't want to deprive anybody from just such a really terrific film. And so if you've never seen it, just go watch it before. If you've managed to make it this far in life and you haven't seen Seven and you haven't heard about how it ends, just go watch it right now before somebody ruins it for you. It's a tremendous film. It's not just about the ending. It's everything. Unbelievable movie. Unbelievable. Can't say enough about it.
I'm holding myself back from saying the infamous line from that movie so hard right now. But yeah, I really thought about this. I thought Patrick's a horror guy. I think he's going to pick it. So let's leave it. But man, Morgan Freeman, Brad Pitt, perfect old young cop partner duo, and David Fincher. What a director. Yeah. Just really rewatchable movie as well, but you kind of have to be in the right headspace because, like, disclaimer, guys, this is a gruesome movie. Yeah, it's gruesome. It's not a happy film, so you need to be in that kind of headspace. And look, other great movies like Casino came out, I think, in '95. I mean, there's some we could go on all day, but I got to go because it's 5:12, and I'm serious about this. I gotta get to daycare and get Rory. But listen, everybody, really appreciate you. Shout out to all of our members who made the show. Who make everything work for us and keep the lights on. If you're interested in becoming a member of the Arrowhead Addict podcast, check out the link in the description. Thank you to producer Richard for making this whole thing run as well. And we'll be back on Friday covering the Black Friday game with our regular pregame, halftime, and postgame show. So we'll see you guys then. I just want to say to everybody, I'm super thankful for all of our listeners. You guys are amazing. We do this for you. We invest every penny this podcast makes back into the podcast. So we can just give you the best cheese product possible. So please enjoy your Thanksgiving, hug your loved ones. You never know, these days you never know when the last time, I'm not trying to get dark here, but it's Thanksgiving and food and football and family and stuff, but you never know when it might be your last holiday with somebody. So just live it up and enjoy your family, hug your loved ones, hug your kids. And I'm wishing you all a very, very happy Thanksgiving. And like I said, we're thankful for all of you and your support of our show. We will see you guys on Friday so the Chiefs can make us thankful for another victory. But until then, as always, go Chiefs.